everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Your Living Proof podcast. I'm going to start with the intro. I'm going to start doing a little... We don't even have to, add it from the computer.
Yeah,
I can just do it with my mouth.
I think we should totally just change everything about it.
Yeah. Just makes it a little bit more
Just for
exciting
you.
to start. But this is episode what?
60.
That's a pretty cool number.
I know. It feels like a big deal.
I bet you knew the number before I even asked.
Yeah, of course I did.
You know, dates.
I know all my kids' birthdays, which is more than Danny can
the day
say.
that we first kissed. I remember the first time you called me a mean name.
I don't.
Okay, before we get started, I'm going to put you on the spot. This is just totally random. If someone said, "Oh, tell me about your relationship with Danny," what would you describe that as? Because I heard this question asked to somebody. You can't give a novel, just a quick thing,
what would I describe it
dysfunctional and
as?
awesome.
Oh, no, I was just going to say roller coaster.
Bipolar.
I was just going to say roller coaster because it is. And and that's, to me, it's not a bad thing because, our highs are higher than I think 90% of people ever go, but our lows are lower than anyone else that I know. And that's just...
Kind of mirrors our personalities, though.
I was going to say, we're both very emotional people. And so it's that's
so
just
last
part
night,
of it.
hold on, by the way, last night, we were snuggling, I was kissing on her a little bit, and this is the problem. Women are so confusing.
I
said,
so
"Oh my
out of line.
gosh, you're such a refined woman."
He said that. Well, I'm
And she's
thinking we're going to have sex. He says, "You're just such a refined woman." And I was like, you know what? Good night.
She's like, "What am I, a librarian?" And this is why it's so hard.
Yeah, I was like,
to be in a relationship, because I think most men would be like, yeah,
No, I am so sorry. No man has ever had a sexual thought about a woman and thought, she's such a refined woman.
It was a respectful way, a mature way of describing
it was dumb,
you.
And it ruined it.
I was trying to be more of the 46-year-old man that I am, and not like a kid and be like, "Ooh, you're so hot."
Okay, I like the thought behind it, but the delivery was horrible.
This is the problem: is you feel a certain way about it, and I feel a certain way about it. It's the same
it's
situation
true, but again,
with everything.
I don't know. I mean, maybe if I wrote a really beautiful book, I would want to be described as a refined woman.
Oh my gosh.
Anything really outside of that,
Or it depends on what day of the week it is.
I don't want that description. Also, because I don't feel like I am refined. I feel like I'm just a kid.
It's fine. Marriage is hard. All relationships are hard.
They are. But I do want to, before we get into it, because we have an awesome episode today, I do want to say I have to acknowledge 2 miracles this week. And they may not sound like miracles. It's only Wednesday, but listen to this. Monday, I got a flat tire. Now, I actually wasn't driving. Danny ran to the store
to get medicine for one of our sick kids. To get
medicine for a puker. And he came back into the garage, and it was 9:15 at night. And he hopped out of my car and heard this hissing sound. And sure enough, there was a puncture in the sidewall of my tire. And he could immediately hear it and fix it. Because honestly, if I would have gone out in the morning, like I always do, early in the morning to go to the gym, I would have found one of my tires on the rim.
You would have drove on it.
No, I wouldn't. It would have been on the rim, and it would have probably bent the rim, and then we would have had this major problem. So I was like, oh my gosh, of all places, I'm glad I wasn't driving the car. It wasn't my fault. And also, it was in our garage. So we discovered the flat tire inside of our garage, not on the side of the road, not in a parking lot, randomly. But then it gets better. So, by the way, he changed the tire immediately, had it fixed and a new tire on before I even got up the next day. But second thing, yesterday we're putting the chickens back in, walking across our driveway to the barn. And we see this shiny thing on the driveway. And I'm like, what is that? He picks it up and he's like, oh, it's like a lug nut. And I'm like, where the heck did that come from? Sure enough, we go into the barn where his truck is parked, and a lug nut actually came off one of his wheels.
Yeah, it fell off on the driveway instead of out on the road.
But I'm like, we just found this we would have never even known it came off if we wouldn't have just been walking right here and it was on our driveway. So 2 days in a row, we had things that honestly could have ended in totally disaster. But I'm like, it was right here. Your car was parked. We found it like 10 feet away from your car, and Danny's truck is in the shop this morning getting
all
fixed.
right. Yep. We're going to get started.
So I'm just saying, you got to notice the miracles, because sometimes it just feels like things are piling up and you're like, why does this keep happening? Why am I going to the tire shop 2 days in a row? This is so stupid. But in another way, I'm like, dude, we avoided a lot of catastrophe in the last 2 days. So
This is why I love you. And
That's
see,
my
hold up. My turn.
He doesn't like when I talk very much of it.
Oh,
Has
I love
anybody
it.
else
But
noticed?
this is it. This is it. Like, it all came to a head. You are beautiful
I'm so
because you can
refined.
recognize, you just stole my thunder. You are so beautiful, and you can recognize the blessings, miracles of little things like tires, where I'm just like murmuring,
Hey,
because you are a refined woman.
okay, so he was right, guys. But just don't ever say it when you're
Gosh,
trying to
dude,
take somebody's
you
clothes
stole
off. Okay?
my thunder.
Just don't.
Refined means you're amazing. Gosh, we're
Okay.
moving on. This is episode 60. Anyone out there listening who loves someone, which unfortunately nowadays is almost every home, that loves someone who's struggling with their addictions, regardless of what those addictions are, this topic is very, very important.
Yep.
We are going to address quickly how the world has neglected the number one weapon against addiction.
Yes.
It's forgotten. They're missing the mark. They've completely abandoned the number one weapon against addiction.
And what is that?
You listening, the family, the mother, the spouse, the father, the grandparents, the siblings, the family. We're going to break down why that is. Why is that the case? Why has the family been neglected in this war against addictions? And also talk about what your role is. Like, what is your role? How do you actually influence the outcome?
Yeah, which is what everybody wants to know, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
everybody wants to know how to
That could be
help.
a whole day topic there, but we will just talk about your role, what it is briefly, the importance of it. I want to talk about why this is. So the first thing is, why is this the case? Why is the family no longer part of this process? Why have they been forgotten?
Yeah, that is a really good question.
16 years ago, I don't know, it's been over 16 years ago now, when I went to treatment, there was no such thing as insurance benefits for addictions or mental health.
Which is so insane. But yes, you're right.
That is the case up until just maybe even a couple years ago. There was no insurance benefits if you were an alcoholic or something to go. There were some companies that started supporting, like the treatment center I went to, they had an affiliation with American Airlines. Mm-hmm. And so if you worked for American Airlines, which is tens of thousands of people all over the country, you could go to this treatment center and the company would pay all of it, but $1,000 the family would have to pay, right? It was something like that.
So like a corporate partnership.
But you couldn't go get affordable, awesome insurance policies and then go to treatment to address your addictions. That just wasn't the case. That was for better and for worse. So for most people, and I won't even go into the amount because it's a lot. Like the treatment center I was at, to be there for like 3 months was $100,000.
Yeah.
Who in the world can afford that?
Very few.
Very, very few. So cash only made it hard or impossible for a lot of people to seek help.
Absolutely.
So they were taking alternative methods. They were just maybe going to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and fellowshipping with other people because it was a free program. But those who were able to go, this is what's interesting, is those who were able to go because they could pay, what happens? If you invest $100,000 into something, or let's say it's even a different program and you're investing $30,000 into something.
Oh, well, you've got skin in the game, so like you're all in. Like your effort is going to be
So
completely different.
I was at a program for 90 days, and every 30 days, the program kind of repeated itself. Right? They set up, but I was just there for longer, which was necessary. But every 30 days, there was an entire week allocated to the family. The family's there on site. They're sitting in process groups. They're sitting in individual therapy. They're doing experiential therapy. All of these different things. The family was so heavily involved.
Yeah.
But they went there. Why? They loved their loved one, but they were also so invested that they were going to do what it took, which even meant the inconvenience of taking time off of school and work and being there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's a huge component of it.
They had to make sacrifices too.
Correct.
Yeah.
That is one of the biggest reasons the insurance has changed things. Now you can find fairly affordable policies. Actually, there's some, just as of last year, there's some actual incredible policies. Every state differs, but where you can go and get a very, very affordable insurance policy if you have a 27-year-old son that's an alcoholic, or you have a spouse that's lost their mind with whatever they're doing. You can go and get these policies in place that immediately will cover about 100% of someone's treatment. Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's completely different.
And I don't want to get into too much of it, but this is where it's also changed for the worse, because now that insurance will pay for it, they also dictate the amount of care that you get.
Yeah.
So all these treatment centers, like in this state where we live, my goodness, there's somewhere between 60 or 65 different rehabilitation facilities. The insurance that they work with, each place works with a different insurance company, and they're in network with different insurance companies. The insurance companies will cover anywhere from like 30, and recently, just in the last few months, it changed to 45 days of coverage. But that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
No more coverage.
So it changed things. Now there's a huge demand, right? Like all these treatment centers that used to be cash only not too many years ago are now, they're just fueled by insurance companies, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Right? What a blessing. But there's such a high demand that often there's a wait to get in. These places are overwhelmed with people just completely. I mean, they're bursting at the seams every single week.
Mm-hmm. I can totally see that.
Every one of us know right now, wherever you go, if you go to McDonald's, Wendy's, Subway, go to a nice restaurant. There's one of my favorite restaurants right here by where we live. It's just closed randomly. And there's a handwritten note on the door that says what?
I don't know. I haven't been there.
Oh, it says closed due to lack of employees.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I mean,
So
everybody's shorthanded.
The point is that all these businesses are shorthanded. Treatment centers are no different. They're shorthanded, but there's this huge demand for it.
Yeah.
That's changed it. And so what happens is when your loved one goes to treatment, I don't want to go off on this too far, that facility is doing their very best to help that person with the limited time that they have them.
Yeah.
They're bursting at the seams. They're trying to stay fully staffed. And so what happens? They don't have the resources, the time, or the ability to involve the family.
Yeah. Absolutely.
There's two components. That's number one. They just don't have the time.
Yeah.
The second component is, this is what's so tragic, and I've had a chance recently to interview a few clinical directors of facilities and ask why. Now, not all, but 90+% of them intentionally avoid the family. Why? I just addressed one. They don't have the resources. Mm-hmm. They don't have the time with the person to involve the family. But the tragic part is all of these clinical directors have explained how more than half, I don't know exactly what percentage, so we're talking about the actual majority slightly, of people who come to these facilities have families who are extremely dysfunctional. Parents are split up. Dad's an alcoholic himself. It's abusive at home. That's where the source of the trauma came. It is, I'm serious, when you hear these people describe it, that more than half the people come into the facilities, their goal is to do what? Detach this person from their family. They know that they're going to have a better chance removing them than like pulling them away from their family, not forever, but just while they begin the recovery, because the family is so toxic. All of our families are messed up. We just admitted how messed up we are.
Yes.
But there is, without a doubt, a lot of families who are the source of the problem, who are contributing so greatly to the problem.
Yeah.
Families who have drinking problems, and they send their son who just has the spotlight on him to get help, but when they come home, they're just like, well, we're not going to stop doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
There's two main reasons the family's been neglected when you look from from a facility standpoint. One, because of insurance, there's such a high demand, they are overwhelmed, overrun, and they're trying to do the best they can. So they just don't have the resources to involve the family. They can just give that person some care. Second of all, the family dynamic has changed.
Yeah, it sounds like it's been a strategic thing for facilities to back out of that scenario because they're finding that it's more harmful than helpful.
Yeah, let me paint the picture.
Patients.
There's so many incredible treatment centers. The people who work there, my gosh, they're God's soldiers, warriors, right? Mm-hmm. Let's say the typical facility has 28 to 30 people in there. There's like 3 to 4 therapists. They each have 8 to 10 people that they're working with, trying to dissect the problem and everything that hurts, the trauma and tragedy they've experienced. Imagine what it would take for them to take those 8 to 10 people and then bring in the mom and dad or the spouse or the kids.
Monumental. Yep.
And because insurance pays, which is great because almost anyone, you can spend $30 a month and get an insurance policy and go have coverage at a facility that's $28,000 a month, have it paid in full. Mm-hmm. But they're only going to do it for the 30 days.
30 days. Yep. And they're not going to support your extended, your extended support.
Why? Because they don't have the resources, or 2, your family is so toxic that they're contributing to it.
Yeah.
Now, without a doubt, there are those families, but I have found in my own experience, there's a whole other world. If we're talking about tens of millions of people in the country affected by addictions that are known of, imagine how many families are affected.
Yeah.
There's still a huge number of incredible families, and that's you listening. That's everyone that I meet with on a daily basis.
Yes.
Amazing families. And what do I mean by amazing? Of course, we all have our challenges and our struggles. We all have our own problems, but they have resources. They have a level of education. Yeah. They've had success in life. They've accomplished incredible things.
Well, and they have the concern, right? Like they are invested in repairing this person that they love and doing their part in what that means.
Correct. Just the elephant in the room. Okay, well, what about those families? What actually holds them back? That's the part that's tragic. These treatment centers are full of people who come from dysfunctional families. Why? Because they're desperate and they need someone's help. These families we just described that are awesome and amazing, they don't typically seek help. Why?
Oh, because they are awesome and amazing and they can figure it out themselves.
We're all guilty of it. We are too with our kids to some degree.
Yeah.
We don't reach out and get help because there's a stigma. We don't need to do that. It's also because we think we can handle it in-house.
Right.
Because in so many other areas of your life, church, school, community, business, you have dominated.
Yeah.
So why can't you, as resourceful as you are, figure out how to help your loved one? So they stay stuck right there forever.
Yep. I can for sure 100% relate to that.
Most of them also have some sort of belief in God. They have like a moral standard, and what it does is actually cripples them.
Yes.
Because those of us who believe, we know miracles exist. Miracles happen. Mm-hmm. You just talked about 2 of them with the nails. You refined woman. But people sit and wait for a miracle to happen without any action.
Right.
So those are the 2 reasons that hold them back, right? That's not solving any of our problems. It's just addressing why.
Yep.
There is a breakdown in recovering from addictions because the family has been removed. I want to make it clear, based upon what we just said, that's not everyone.
No.
But with addiction, there is not a one shoe fits all. There is not even close to that.
Yeah.
There's a whole entire problem with like the homeless. The corrections department is a whole problem. There is a myriad of problems. The breakdown of the family we just discussed, but there are an incredible amount of good, God-fearing,
invested,
amazing families that still can't figure out how to help their loved one.
Yep.
And I don't care if you're using insurance, which you should, or you're paying cash. You're sending your loved one somewhere and expecting what?
A miracle.
A miracle.
A miracle. That's what I think is, like, just hearing you talk about this, and we've talked about it so many times, is what it sounds like to me, like, if I'm understanding it right, to me, it's like rehab facilities have shifted into becoming like ERs.
Yep.
It's just an emergency room. And guess what? Emergency rooms are essential. Like, my heavens. Have you ever been to a third world country where they aren't there? People just die of crazy things. But here's the thing. Emergency rooms are set up to stabilize people.
Yep.
And that is it. That is their only job.
Stop the bleeding.
Yes.
Bandage
like,
the
I'm
wound.
here to address the immediate trauma, the things that are life-threatening right now, and I will get you stable. And then there is an intensive process, depending on what you're there for, on getting you completely healed. But what's interesting is we haven't caught up to that culturally yet. Even the most educated and informed and well-intended people still aren't grasping that concept. So they're still going, oh no, we're doing it. Like, we've got them into a facility. But they aren't grasping the idea that there's so much more that needs to be done, even on their part. And they need to understand the entire process. And it is just beginning. The ER visit, so to speak, the facility, is step one to probably 20 more steps.
It is not the solution. It's the first step.
Yeah, and it's almost like we talked about this a few episodes ago, where it's the difference between getting somebody sober and then somebody recovering. Those are very different.
Yeah, and you know what? It's interesting. I've started really learning is anybody can get sober. And that's why in the rooms of recovery, you see people that they say everybody has a bag full of 30-day chips. Everyone has a pocket full of 90-day chips. Some even have a handful of 6-month chips. But most people that get to a year, that's the only one they ever get because they keep going.
Yeah.
And what's interesting, you just described the ER. So let's imagine you got in a car accident, severely injured, you went to the ER, you're there for a few days. When you get released, what do? They give you some resources. Mm-hmm. Hey, here's where you need to go do physical therapy. Here's a doctor where you need to continue your care.
Yep.
So what does the family do?
They do it.
And the person that's hurt, they do it.
Yep.
Okay. When it's these emotional and spiritual wounds that manifest in addictions, the person leaves the ER, which is rehab, 30 or 45 days in, and guess what happens?
They jump ship. They're like, I'm good.
Jump ship. You can't see the break. You can't see the wound. You can't see the bleeding. So they're like, okay, you're good. Here's the tricky part. As a family member, you send someone somewhere, and I actually heard a dad say this phrase this week. Yeah, well, I sent them there. It costs a lot of money, and I expect them to do their job.
Yeah.
What do you mean their job? To fix my son. Like, whatever the problem is, fix it.
Yeah.
I know his intentions were good, but he's looking at it like a business negotiation.
Yes.
Fix the problem. Oh, my gosh.
Like a transaction.
I'm all over the place, but this is what I'm so passionate about because I've been through it. Imagine going to a treatment center as addicted to whatever it is. I don't care how bad your withdrawals are because it's usually the case with all of them. Even if it's porn addiction or certain prescriptions, your body's going to go into shock. Now, when it's more the illicit stuff, you're going to spend the first 2 weeks trying to have a regular bowel movement.
Yeah, just
you're going to crawl out of your skin.
things.
Every treatment center takes usually 2 weeks for a person to be able to sit still. They fidget, their knees ache, their attention span is so limited. They're not sleeping well. They're not eating well. By the time they start to feel like a human being, they got like 2 weeks left.
Yeah.
How is anyone supposed to do their job in that time frame?
Right.
Now, most of these treatment centers, just like the ER, when you leave, what do? They give you resources.
Yes.
Here's what you're supposed to do. And I'm coming to the major point right here. The reason why the world's neglected the number one threat to addiction is somebody has to keep them accountable. This is not like leaving the ER with a broken femur and your child or your spouse is going to keep doing their physical therapy because they want to walk again.
Yeah.
When they leave this treatment center, here's the tricky part. No one, I don't care if they're there 30 days or 45 days, no one, not a single soul, man, woman, young, old, wants to keep doing it.
Right.
Why? Everyone's like, why the hell is that the case? Well, first of all, it's not fun. Second of all, with these emotional and spiritual wounds, they leave and they actually feel better.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I left treatment, I felt better.
And you looked better.
I didn't stink anymore. I wasn't crazy anymore. The light was on in my eyes. I was healthy. My skin looked better.
Yeah.
And my family saw me and they're like, oh my gosh, it's so nice to have you back.
Yep.
I didn't even have to convince them because I myself felt like I was better.
Yeah.
So I just go right back to life.
Well, I think that's
No physical therapy, no continued care.
Key. That is, and you know what I think is interesting too, and I'm just putting myself in all these parents' shoes or spouses' shoes, is they're going, well, how do you make them keep doing the program?
Well, and that's the kicker. So thank you for the segue. You're so refined.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna smack you.
Do it on camera.
No, I'm literally going to later. It's gonna suck.
Get it recorded. How do you get them to do it? Here's the deal. I don't care. Please, like, if this is your dad we're talking about, or your brother who is super successful, the attorney.
Like, what if it is your dad? How are you going to tell dad to do it?
No one wants to keep doing it. No one wants to sit in rooms and keep talking about their feeling and surrounding themselves with people that are hurting and suffering and talking about all these negative things. Everyone just wants to move on.
Yes, of course.
So there's only two ways. There are two ways. The idea that your loved one's going to want to keep doing this for themselves, you can forget it. No one has ever continued after they left the ER, again, after they left rehab, has wanted to keep doing their quote physical therapy, their continued care. So there's two ways. The very most common way, unfortunately, is a judge.
Yeah.
You commit certain laws, you commit certain crimes, you get charged with certain things, and here's what the judge does. They throw you a bone, and here's your get-out-of-jail-free card. You can go to a program. You can complete the duration of that program, and that varies. It's usually like a 6 to 12-month probationary period. Complete the program, and your charges are gone.
Yeah, so you do have like a carrot dangled in front of you.
You do it, or you go sit in a jail cell. I was presented the same thing once, and I was just like, didn't do what they said I was supposed to do, and boop, there's a warrant for your arrest, and they'll put you right back in.
Yeah.
So there's motivation. Someone's holding you to it. It's like, okay, I'm going to keep going. I hate class. I hate taking peeing in a cup every day. I'd rather be doing anything else, but I'm not going to jail, so I'm going to go to class.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big motivator.
What's reason number two? What's the only other way besides a judge?
The people that have been left out and cut out of the equation, the family.
What the world has neglected, it's the family. But they're sitting there going, well, my son's 27. What am I supposed to do? The spouse is like, well, my husband, he controls the finances. Like, what am I supposed to do? Mm-hmm. How am I going to make him do it? You have got to seek help and create this ultimate gift. And part of that gift is for your commitment, your continued support, your love, your ability to learn to retrust. All of that is contingent upon them doing certain things. There's so many other aspects to this gift, but that is the only way you can. They need you. They want you. I don't care if they control the finances. I don't care if they're 27 and they don't live in your house anymore. Nobody gets to this point where their life's unmanageable and they need help and they're thriving. Trust me.
Yeah.
Trust me. Their life's falling apart. They need you. I don't even care if they do have money left. Most of them don't. Most people are it's such carnage all around them that they have to have someone's help.
Yep.
Even if they still have some resources, like they have a really good job, or they make money. They are emotionally broken. They need love. They need someone to care about them, and they need someone to hold them accountable.
Yes.
It is tricky. It's easier said than actually done, but you've got to seek professional help with myself or someone else and figure out how you create this and how you communicate this new healthy boundary.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have any leverage to hold them.
Right. Well, and they're going to do the path of least resistance, which is just not hold themselves accountable, that's for sure. And if you're not, then no one is. And then it's only a matter of time.
It's only a matter of time.
So bad habits continue to form. So here's the best part, guys. We have been working so hard. We've talked about it a couple of times, but we have a completely brand spanking new program that is in...
It's a very comprehensive program that walks you through this whole process.
That's what we do. So if you're like, oh my gosh, I need more details, go to our website, YourLivingProof.com, and register for our masterclass. It is free. You will learn so much, and you will actually understand more about what we actually teach in the Living Proof process, our program. So go to that website, send it to somebody that needs to hear it. And then before we go, I do want to say one more thing, and that is I promised moving forward, we are going to read the Serenity Prayer for families every time before we leave this podcast. So I'm going to read it.
You read it, but let me wrap up with one thought.
Okay.
The person you once loved and remembered and who was dynamic and amazing and lit up. Yeah, refined. Just like you.
Yeah.
That person that lit up the room when they walked into it, they're still in there, but it's going to be a fight. You're going to have to fight like hell to get them back.
Yep.
You can't walk out of the ER with a gaping wound bandaged and then just decide to rip the bandage off and get your shiz together, right?
Right.
Stop treating emotional and spiritual wounds different than we do physical wounds. As a matter of fact, it's going to take more effort.
Way more.
More time, more resources. So every person that goes and seeks help and then 3 or 4 weeks later comes out and says, I'm good, let me tell you what happens. They burn out.
Yeah.
Of
course they do.
Have financial stress. They go home, and the hard part is a lot of them are learning how to love life again, how to feel any sort of euphoria or good feelings naturally.
Yes.
There's so many challenges. They realize they've destroyed relationships. It's worse. We all had the dream when you went to school naked. I don't know.
Yeah.
Did you? It's like
I've
a
had
common
that.
nightmare.
I've actually had that thought when I go to the gym sometimes and I take off my jacket. I'm like, did I put on a shirt?
Oh, wow. That would be amazing. I wish I would be
there. No, but
there.
it's never happened. I'm just saying it's always a fear.
So that feeling of being naked and vulnerable, just a terrible is how they feel all the time when they come out.
And
so
they have no coping skills.
So there are two things that will hold them to what is most essential. You've heard me say this before. What's the number one component? I'm going to put you on the quiz right now.
Time.
The number one component for anyone to heal from any addiction, alcohol, drugs, sex, porn, whatever. Time
to heal.
People will argue and push back and say, oh, it's God. Well, of course.
Well, he's a major component.
He is the component, but guess what?
He works step by step in a process, and
I know,
that takes
but
time.
let me remind you, from an addict's perspective, no one comes out and grasps onto him right out the bat.
Right.
Over time, they might have the ability to believe in something that can help restore them to sanity, but it's never going to be from the beginning.
Right.
So yes, God's the number one, most important. But until that happens, and for that to happen,
yes, they've got to have the time.
they have to have time to heal. So someone has to hold them accountable to get that time under their belt. So yes, they can have hope. They can see a path forward. They can cling on to God. If you jump ship and think that they're cured after you leave the ER, you're going to keep her defining insanity.
Yes. Okay.
Close it out,
So,
Blondie, you
Serenity
refined,
Prayer.
beautiful woman.
This is the Serenity Prayer for families. So wait, do yours first.
Okay, the Serenity Prayer in recovery is, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Okay, and the Serenity Prayer for families is, God, grant me the serenity to accept that I cannot change other people, the courage to change the person that I can, and the wisdom to know that it's me.
That's it. Thank you guys for joining. We'll see you next week on our episode 61.